Ethan Miller had been traveling through the nebula expanse for almost 2 weeks. The expanse was a part of space that humans did not fully control. It was full of broken ships, strange storms, and creatures that could survive in the void of space. Many soldiers avoided this area, but Ethan had a mission. He was a scout, sent to check on old trade routes and make sure that no dangerous raiders had taken over. The ship Ethan commanded was small, fast, and lightly armed. It was not meant for heavy battles. It had one living quarter, a small kitchen, and a control room full of blinking lights and screens. Ethan liked it because it was simple and easy to manage. He often talked to the ship like it was a companion, saying, "Hold on, buddy. We have a long journey ahead." One night, while he was scanning a nearby asteroid belt, something unusual appeared on his sensors. It was small, moving slowly, and had no clear shape. Ethan squinted at the monitor. "What is that?" he whispered to himself. He adjusted the sensors, but the object did not respond. It seemed to be drifting toward a derelict ship lying on the edge of the asteroid field. The ship looked old and dangerous. Its metal was rusted in space, and pieces of it floated away slowly. It had clearly been abandoned for years. Most humans would have avoided it completely, but Ethan felt a strange pull. Something about the drifting object made him curious. He decided to investigate. He moved the ship closer and docked carefully. The docking clamps shook as the old metal groaned. Inside, the ship was dark, covered in dust and floating debris. Ethan switched on his flashlight and started to walk carefully through the narrow corridor. The air smelled stale, like it had been trapped for decades. Suddenly, a sound reached his ears. It was soft, almost a whisper, but it was definitely alive. Ethan froze. He pointed his flashlight in the direction of the sound. There, in the corner of a small room, he saw a tiny figure curled up. The figure was trembling, barely breathing. At first, he thought it might be a human child, but the shape was wrong. The skin was pale blue, and the hair shimmered like silver in the light. Ethan knelt slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Hey," he said gently. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The child's eyes opened wide. They were bright, glowing slightly, and looked intelligent beyond her age. Ethan had never seen eyes like that before. He could feel a strange energy coming from the small body. The child made a soft sound, like a mix between a hum and a sigh. She reached out a tiny hand, and Ethan carefully held it. She was surprisingly warm despite the coldness of the derelict ship. Ethan's heart tightened. This child was alone and scared. She needed help. He picked her up gently and carried her back to his ship. He wrapped her in a blanket he kept for emergencies. "You're safe now," he whispered, trying to sound calm. The child leaned against him and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she seemed relaxed. Ethan worked quickly. He checked her for injuries. Her arms and legs had scratches and bruises, but nothing was broken. She had no signs of illness, but she was clearly exhausted. Ethan set up a small bed for her in the corner of the ship's cabin. He gave her some water, which she drank slowly, and offered food. She nibbled at it cautiously, like she had never eaten human food before. As the ship moved away from the derelict vessel, Ethan stared at the girl. He had rescued many humans during his service, but he had never encountered anything like her. She was small, fragile, but her presence felt strong. He wondered who she was and where she had come from. Over the next few hours, he tried to communicate. He asked her simple questions, pointing at objects and saying their names. She would respond sometimes with small noises or gestures. She could understand him more than he expected, but she could not speak his language. Ethan realized he needed patience. She was different, and he could not rush her. Ethan looked out of the ship's window at the swirling colors of the nebula expanse. He had spent years traveling these regions, but he had never seen anything like this. He had faced raiders, storms, and wild space creatures, but nothing had prepared him for this. He felt a sense of responsibility. This child was alone in the universe, and it was now his job to protect her. As night passed, the child moved closer to him. Ethan noticed she liked the warmth of his body. She rested her small head on his shoulder while he monitored the ship's systems. He felt an unusual bond forming. It was strange, but it was real. He promised himself that he would do everything he could to keep her safe, even if it meant risking his own life. The next day, Ethan scanned the surrounding space for any signs of life. He needed to know if anyone was looking for the child or if dangerous factions were nearby. The sensors picked up nothing, but Ethan knew better than to trust empty readings. Space was full of surprises, and one mistake could be fatal. While he worked, the child began to move around the cabin. She explored slowly, touching objects with curiosity. Ethan watched her carefully, making sure she did not hurt herself. Her movements were delicate, but her eyes never stopped observing. It was clear she was learning quickly, studying everything. Ethan smiled softly. He had met humans who were this smart at her age, but this child's intelligence seemed to go beyond human limits. By the afternoon, the child fell asleep in her small bed. Ethan sat nearby, keeping watch. He thought about the derelict ship, the mysterious object that had led him there, and the strange energy the child carried. Something inside him told him that this was not a random accident. This child was special, and perhaps more important than anything he had ever encountered. That night, a faint alarm sounded on the ship. Ethan jumped up, grabbing his blaster. The sensors showed a small vessel approaching. It moved slowly, scanning the area. Ethan's heart raced. Was it a raider? Or someone else looking for the child? He moved to a control panel and raised the shields, ready to defend them. The approaching ship did not fire immediately. Instead, it hovered at a distance. Ethan studied it carefully. Its design was alien, unlike anything humans had built. He realized that the child might be from that world. The thought both worried and intrigued him. If she belonged to that civilization, returning her could be complicated. But he could not let anyone harm her. He stayed awake most of the night, keeping an eye on the approaching vessel. The child slept peacefully, unaware of the danger outside. Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness. He would not let her be taken. Not by raiders, not by aliens, not by anyone. She was under his care now. As the first light of the nearby star reached the ship, Ethan made a decision. He would take her to the nearest human outpost. It would be safer, and he could plan the next steps there. He activated the engines and set a course for the outpost, keeping the child close to him. She stirred slightly, sensing movement, but did not wake fully. During the long journey, Ethan found small ways to communicate with her. He showed her how to point at objects and repeated simple words. She began to respond with small sounds that matched his speech. It was slow, but it was progress. Ethan realized that even though they came from different worlds, they could understand each other. Days passed. The journey was not easy. The nebula expanse had storms that shook the ship and strange currents that pushed them off course. Ethan had to navigate carefully, using every skill he had learned over years of service. Through it all, the child stayed close, and her presence gave him a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Finally, Ethan glimpsed the distant lights of the human outpost. Relief washed over him. They were safe, at least for now. He prepared to land, making sure the child was secure and comfortable. As the ship descended, Ethan looked down at the settlement. He knew that many questions would come. Who was the child? Where did she come from? And what dangers would follow her? Ethan held the child tightly as the landing began. He did not have answers yet, but he had a promise. He would keep her safe. He would protect her no matter what. And as the ship touched down, he felt a strange hope. This small being, lost in the vastness of space, might be the beginning of something far greater than he could imagine. The human outpost was small but busy. Ships of all shapes and sizes came and went, carrying traders, soldiers, and travelers. Ethan Miller guided his small ship through the landing bay, careful not to hit anything. The child, still wrapped in a blanket, watched the activity with wide, curious eyes. She had never seen so many humans in one place, and the lights and sounds made her silent for a long time. Ethan carried her off the ship and into the outpost's medical center. The staff were used to dealing with wounded humans, but when they saw the pale blue skin and shimmering silver hair, they froze. They had heard rumors of alien species, but this was unlike anything they had ever treated. Ethan gently explained, I found her on a derelict ship in the nebula expanse. She is hurt but alive. Please, just help her. She is alone. The medics quickly got to work. They checked her vitals, cleaned her scratches and bruises, and gave her some food and water. She ate slowly, her small hands gripping the bowl tightly. Ethan sat nearby, watching every movement. He noticed how cautious she was. Everything was new to her, and every sound or light seemed to make her tense. Once the medics left, Ethan tried to get her attention. Hey, can you understand me? He asked softly. She looked up at him with her bright eyes. Slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Ethan smiled. He had never felt such a connection with someone so different from himself. Over the next few hours, Ethan tried different ways to communicate. He drew shapes on a tablet and pointed to objects, hoping she would match the symbols. Sometimes she did, pointing to the correct object or making a small sound that seemed like agreement. Ethan realized that even without words, she could understand him. Her mind was quick, and she learned faster than any child he had ever known. Ethan decided to give her a name. You need a name, he said quietly. Something easy. How about Leora? The child tilted her head, considering the sound. After a moment, she made a soft humming noise and repeated the sound faintly. Ethan grinned. That's it, Leora. From then on, he called her by that name, and she responded to it with small smiles and nods. The day passed slowly. Ethan showed Leora around the medical center, pointing at chairs, beds, and instruments, teaching her the names. She watched carefully, her eyes wide and alert. She had been alone for a long time, and everything was new. Ethan could see the fear in her eyes, but he could also see curiosity growing. She wanted to learn, and he wanted to teach later. Ethan took her to the living quarters he had arranged for them. The room was small but comfortable. He set a bed for her, a table, and a small chair. Leora explored carefully, touching the walls, the bed, and even the window. Ethan watched her quietly, letting her discover things at her own pace. As the evening fell, Ethan sat near the window, looking at the stars. Leora sat on the bed, silent, her eyes reflecting the lights outside. Ethan spoke softly. I know this is strange for you. Everything here is different, but you are safe now. I promise you that. She looked at him, and for a moment, he thought he saw understanding in her gaze. That night, Leora slept peacefully for the first time since Ethan found her. He stayed awake, keeping watch by the window. His mind wandered. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she alone? And what dangers might follow her? Ethan did not have answers, but he knew one thing. He would not leave her side. She had become more than just a responsibility. She had become someone he cared about deeply. The next morning, Ethan began to make plans. He knew that the outpost was only a temporary safe place. He needed to find out where Leora came from and if anyone was looking for her. He decided to contact the Human Intelligence Network. There might be records of missing alien children or messages from other civilizations. He needed information before taking the next step while he worked on his communications. Leora explored more freely. She touched the walls, the floor, and the window, fascinated by everything. Ethan watched her carefully. She had a quiet curiosity, and it was clear she wanted to understand the world around her. He realized that she was not just a child. She was someone extraordinary. Her mind seemed sharper than most humans he had known, and her reactions were quick and precise. Hours passed. Finally, Ethan received a reply from the Human Intelligence Network. There were no records of her among human allies, but they noted a report from a distant star system about a missing child from an alien species. The description matched Leora closely. The report mentioned that the child might be of royal origin, and that she could be important to the alien civilization. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew this meant that returning her would not be simple. He decided to tell Leora in the simplest way he could. He drew a small picture on the tablet of a throne and a figure holding a child. Then he pointed at her and said, "You, special, important." Leora looked at the drawing, then at him. She made a small hum and reached for his hand. Ethan understood her response. She might not understand words, but she understood his meaning. She trusted him. The next few days were a mix of training and learning. Ethan taught Leora simple words, how to move around safely, and even basic tools she could use. She was quick to learn, picking up words and actions faster than he expected. He noticed that she had a keen sense of observation. She watched every movement and repeated it perfectly. Sometimes, it felt like she understood more than he was teaching. One evening, while they were sitting in the observation room, Ethan looked out at the stars and said softly, "You might have a home far away, but for now, this is where you are safe." Leora looked at him with her large, bright eyes. She leaned slightly closer, resting her small hand on his arm. Ethan felt warmth in his chest. He had grown attached to her in just a few days' as they continued to spend time together. Ethan noticed something strange. Occasionally, when Leora became scared or anxious, a faint light would glow from her wrist. It was subtle but noticeable. He had never seen anything like it. He wondered if it was a signal, a mark, or something else entirely. Whatever it was, it only made him more certain that she was extraordinary. One morning, a message arrived from a distant alien system. It was unclear, but the symbols and shapes seemed to be some kind of identification or communication. Ethan showed it to Leora. She looked at the symbols, then at him, and made a sound that almost seemed like recognition. Ethan realized that she might understand more than he thought. This was not just any child. She might be someone very important to her people. Ethan knew that he had to prepare for the journey ahead. If Leora was truly of royal origin, he would need to take her to her homeworld. But the journey would not be easy. The nebula expanse was dangerous, and there were likely factions that would try to stop them. He began making plans, checking maps, and preparing the ship for travel. Leora watched him, fascinated by the blinking lights and controls. He showed her how to press buttons, how to watch the sensors, and how to stay safe during their preparations. Ethan began to notice small things about Leora. She was playful in quiet ways, touching objects and making soft noises. She was brave, climbing onto chairs and exploring the ship. And she was intelligent, understanding instructions and responding quickly. Ethan realized that this child was more than just a survivor. She was strong, capable, and unique. One night, as they sat together in the observation room, Ethan asked softly, "Do you want to go home one day?" Leora looked at him, her eyes shining. She hummed softly and reached for his hand. Ethan smiled. He did not need words to understand. She wanted to go home, but she trusted him to take her there safely. The following day, Ethan made final preparations for the journey. He packed supplies, checked the ship's systems, and made sure that Leora was ready. She watched with curiosity, her small hands touching objects and asking questions in her own way. Ethan answered patiently, showing her each item and explaining its use. As they prepared to leave the outpost, Ethan looked at Leora. She had become more than a child he found on a derelict ship. She was a companion, a student, and someone he cared about deeply. He knew the journey ahead would be dangerous, but he also knew that they would face it together. Finally, with everything ready, Ethan and Leora boarded the ship. He wrapped a blanket around her and held her close. "We are leaving soon," he said softly. "I will keep you safe." Leora rested her head on his shoulder, her small hand gripping his arm. Ethan felt a sense of determination he had never felt before. No matter what dangers awaited them, he would protect her. As the ship lifted off the landing bay and entered the blackness of space, Ethan looked at the stars. He knew that the journey ahead would change both of their lives. Leora's past was a mystery, and her future was uncertain. But one thing was clear. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy threw at them. The stars stretched endlessly outside Ethan's small ship as they traveled through the nebula expanse. He sat in the control room, his hands steady on the controls, but his mind was racing. Leora, the strange child he had found, had shown signs of being more than just a lost alien. She had intelligence beyond her years, and that faint glowing mark on her wrist was not normal. Ethan could feel that her origin was important, but he did not yet know how important. Leora sat nearby, playing with a small metal cube Ethan had given her. She turned it in her hands, watching it spin and reflect the lights of the control panels. Ethan watched her quietly. Every movement she made seemed thoughtful. She was learning fast, watching how he handled the ship, how he made decisions, and even how he reacted under pressure. It amazed him that someone so small could understand so much without words. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped urgently. Ethan jumped, scanning the readouts. There was a vessel approaching, fast, and it did not look friendly. He frowned. "Leora, stay close to me," he said quietly. The child seemed to understand. Gripping his arm with surprising strength, Ethan's heart pounded. Whoever was coming could be dangerous. The ship on the sensor closed in quickly, a sleek black vessel with sharp edges. It did not identify itself. Ethan knew that in the expanse, any unidentified ship could be a threat. He activated the shields and moved the ship to a defensive position. He hoped to avoid conflict, but he was ready to fight if needed. The vessel did not fire immediately. It hovered near them, scanning. Ethan tried to communicate, sending out standard identification signals. There was no response. The ship's movement was precise, almost intelligent. Ethan realized this was no random raider. This vessel was looking for something or someone. Leora watched silently, her small eyes wide. She seemed to sense the danger even more than Ethan expected. He put a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. I'll handle this," he whispered. She leaned against him, trusting him completely. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He would protect her, no matter what. As the black ship moved closer, a communication signal finally came through. The message was in alien symbols, strange and complex. Ethan studied it, but he could not decipher it fully. He realized that it might be a warning or a threat. Whatever it was, he knew it had something to do with Leora. She reacted immediately. The faint glow on her wrist brightened slightly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ethan's pulse quickened. He decided not to wait. He punched in the controls and moved the ship at full speed, weaving through asteroid clusters to avoid being tracked easily. The pursuing ship followed, fast and relentless. Ethan's training kicked in. He had faced enemies before, but never like this. He needed a plan, and he needed to protect Leora at the same time. Hours passed as they navigated the dangerous nebula. Ethan used every skill he had learned as a soldier and scout. The pursuing ship matched him at every turn, but it never fired. It was as if it was testing him or watching. Leora remained close. Silent but alert, Ethan realized that she understood the danger and trusted him completely. He felt a deep bond forming, stronger than anything he had experienced. Finally, Ethan found a hidden corner of space, a region dense with asteroids and cosmic debris. He led his ship into it, hoping the natural cover would help them escape. The pursuing ship hesitated, scanning carefully, then moved away. Ethan let out a long breath. He looked at Leora. She was calm now, but he could see the intelligence in her eyes. She had noticed the danger, and she had understood his actions. After the tension passed, Ethan decided it was time to start learning more about her origin. He used the ship's translator and tried to send simple signals toward alien archives that human allies had collected. It was slow, but any information could be useful. Hours later, he received fragments of a message. It mentioned a lost child of the alien queen, a child who had disappeared during a war decades ago. Ethan's heart raced. The description matched Leora exactly. He turned to her, showing her the message in the simplest way he could. He drew a figure of a throne, a crown, and a small child. Then he pointed to Leora and said, "You, this child." Leora looked at the symbols, then at him. She made a soft hum and touched her glowing wrist. Ethan's heart tightened. She understood. She was not just any alien. She was royalty. Ethan knew that this changed everything. If she was truly the daughter of the alien queen, many would be searching for her. Some would want to protect her, but others might want to use her for power. He had to get her to safety and prepare for the journey to her homeworld. But first, he needed more information. Over the next few days, Ethan used every resource available. He contacted human intelligence, scanned old archives, and tried to decipher alien messages. Each fragment confirmed what he feared and hoped. Leora was the lost daughter of Queen Zyra, ruler of a distant alien civilization. Her return could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Leora watched as he worked, asking questions in her own way. She pointed to symbols, made soft hums, and sometimes repeated words he taught her. Ethan realized that her intelligence was far beyond a normal child. She understood context, meaning, and emotion. She was learning fast, and she was aware of her own importance, even if she could not express it fully. One night, as they rested in the observation room, Ethan spoke softly. Leora, people will come looking for you. Some will be friends, some may not, but I will protect you. You are safe with me. Leora looked at him and touched his arm. It was a simple gesture, but it was enough. She trusted him completely. Ethan felt a surge of responsibility and determination. The next morning, Ethan plotted a course toward a neutral planet, known for hosting diplomatic meetings between species. He hoped to use the planet as a safe stop before reaching the alien homeworld. The journey would be long, and the nebula expanse was unpredictable, but he was ready. He had to be. Leora depended on him, and he would not fail her. During the journey, Ethan noticed more unusual abilities in Leora. Sometimes, when she was frightened, the glow on her wrist became brighter. Other times, it pulsed in rhythm with danger signals detected by the ship. It was as if she could sense threats before the instruments could. Ethan realized that she was more than just intelligent. She had abilities that could be useful but also dangerous if others discovered them. One afternoon, while they were passing through a dense asteroid field, the ship's sensors detected another vessel. It moved slowly, but Ethan could tell it was scanning for them. He brought the ship to a stop behind a large asteroid, hoping to hide. Leora watched him carefully, her small hands gripping the edge of her seat. She understood the need for caution. The vessel passed without incident, but Ethan knew they were not safe. Whoever was looking for Leora was clever and persistent. He tightened his plan. They could not stop until they reached a truly safe place. He would have to use all of his skill to keep them alive. As the days passed, Ethan and Leora grew closer. He taught her more words, simple sentences, and even how to interact with simple tools on the ship. She was eager to learn, and every small success brought him joy. At the same time, he knew that her future was not only about learning. It was about survival, about trust, and about preparing her for a destiny he did not fully understand. One evening, as the stars shifted outside the observation window, Ethan spoke quietly. You are not alone, Leora. Even if the galaxy is dangerous, you have me, and I will never leave your side. Leora looked at him with wide, bright eyes. She reached out, touching his hand again. It was more than trust, it was a bond. Ethan felt it deeply. The following days were tense. They moved carefully through dangerous regions of the expanse, avoiding detection and using stealth tactics. Ethan tested Leora's reactions, noticing how she responded to danger and stress. She was brave, focused, and quick to understand. He realized that she might survive challenges he could not even imagine for a child. Finally, they approached the neutral planet. Its atmosphere was calm, and its defenses were minimal. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. They had made it this far without being caught. He landed the ship carefully, setting up a safe perimeter. Before bringing Leora outside, she looked at the planet's surface with wonder. For the first time, she seemed relaxed, curious, and even excited. Ethan knew this was only a temporary safe place. They would have to continue their journey to the alien homeworld soon. But for now, they had time to rest, plan, and learn more about Leora's abilities and origins. He felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The real challenges were still ahead, but he was ready. As they settled on the planet, Ethan watched Leora explore. She touched the grass, the rocks, and even the water. Her fascination reminded him of why he had chosen to protect her. She was special, and the galaxy was a better place with her alive and safe. He promised himself that he would face every danger, fight every enemy, and solve every problem to ensure her survival. The glow on her wrist pulsed faintly as night fell. Ethan sat beside her, feeling the weight of responsibility and the strength of his bond. Leora was more than a lost child. She was a symbol, a hope, and a future, and together, they would face whatever the galaxy had in store.